Out there, 5:40-15 in the house again, Wednesday, 7 a.m. like always, regardless of whether we're ready or not. Put the mirror cap back up, I can't see it. So good morning, John O'Brien here. Jeremy Lundstrom on the couch for the first time. Welcome to the hot seat. Thank you. What do you think of this?
Interesting. That was something different.
Well, for those of you who've never joined us before or watching it on YouTube, this is so weird to see. Gotta pull that off. I'm seeing a delay. Talk about tech, talk about government and tech together. I think today we're going to talk predominantly about tech with a little government spin. Sometimes we talk about Fed biz opportunities in the tech space, but just kind of whatever comes to mind as we go through the week and see news articles and things like that. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about microservices and containers. I pitched this one a couple weeks ago, then I was out for a week, didn't realize I wasn't going to be here for it. So last week, Jeremy and Trey got a chance to talk about test-driven development. They went on their soapbox for that, all good. I think I'm going to go a little bit on a soapbox with microservices and containers today. What are you going to talk about, Jeremy?
I'm going to get it started with this cool kind of app hardware combo that lets you connect to your car and just get all the information that your car's computer kind of spits out.
Do you want to go into that now, or do you want me to start?
Yeah, I'll get it started here.
Okay,
So,
go ahead.
What it's called is Automatic, and basically what it is, it's an app hardware combo for about $100 that you can kind of connect to your car. And what it does is it gives you access to all your car's computer's data. And what's really cool is that they've started opening up their APIs to third-party developers. And with these APIs, it kind of allows the developers free reign of all the data coming from the computer. Basically, there's two kinds of APIs that they have. They have their REST APIs, which kind of you make your calls to, and it gives you nice real data. And then there's this really cool real-time APIs, which kind of exposes stuff as it's happening through your car's kind of like your route, your speed and stuff. And what that uses is the webhooks and WebSocket API, which kind of allows you to continuously stream that data.
So rewinding for a minute, we didn't get a chance to talk before the live stream here. Yeah. We tend to not do that. We tend to kind of come in to do it live a little bit. I'm a big car guy, or claim to be one. And so I'm curious, like, so kind of going back to the hardware component of it, did it talk about, I'm assuming it's hooking up to like the ODD
Yep.
2 port
That's exactly
off the computers, and then what, is it have its own kind of onboard Wi-Fi that's streaming to a cloud service?
It's connecting to your phone, which is connected to their cloud service.
Okay.
So it's kind of using your phone as a middleman to go back and forth with all that stuff.
And so basically, is it pushing all of the data that the ODD2 port, I think that's what it is, right? Provides then?
Yeah.
And then what, basically pushing it up to the cloud?
Well, basically what it is now is there's developers going in and create their own apps. So it's calling whatever you have on your phone.
Oh, okay.
So it's not necessarily dumping everything, but you're making the calls, and there's the real-time ones that it's kind of cool because there have been a whole bunch of other companies kind of pairing up with them, like insurance companies.
Okay.
So they can tell when you're speeding, or they can tell
services.
like hard stops and hard accelerations. So when you stomp on the gas or stomp on the brakes, it kind of gives you a rating for every single
event like that.
Yeah, every single trip you take.
So I'm gonna have to send this to my friend Jay Marr, owner of Real Street Performance in Orlando. He pitched me an idea like that many years ago. It was much more before we had the mobile proliferation and the cloud proliferation. But that concept of being able to monitor the events on a car from the standpoint of tracking certain things,
right.
You know, especially like in the services industry or something where folks are using company vehicles and stuff like that. I am curious though. I think I would like to do some offline discussions on this, like how that data, kind of even via the phone and knowing that's where some of those interactions are, where the APIs are. So is that like locally served off the device then, those APIs? now I'm getting too detailed.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Now I'm
detail.
like, now I'm totally like, I may not even be able to do my thing today. No, seriously, I think we should actually talk to them too a little bit down, my friends down there, because there'd be maybe some interesting plays there, and they may already be looking at something like that too. What's the name of it again?
Automatic.
Automatic. Is it available in beta or can you buy it right now?
Yeah. See, they just recently opened it up to the APIs, and because they started out with just their application, and then it was kind of just here's the information that we want you to see, and now it's kind of here's all the information, do with it what you want.
Oh, right, because now you'll be able to talk to
which is kind of cool because like they partner with Nest, and like it can kind of detect when you're on your way home and kind of adjust your thermostat, saying, hey, I'm heading home.
Got it.
Turn the heat up or turn the AC on.
Interesting.
Cool stuff like that.
So we're gonna definitely have to get one of those devices and play with it and hack on a little bit. I mean, I think it's the whole Internet of Things, right? It's
exactly.
It's another node on the Internet of Things that I think we'll be able to leverage.
Yep. And I was gonna say, like, hopefully things like the new wearables, they kind of follow suit with this and kind of give everybody access to their information or what data they collect and let you do with what you please.
There's been a lot of talk in the news recently about the software in cars being not necessarily owned by the owner of the car, but only leased. Did that come up in any of that article or any of those discussions? I'm just curious because in essence, a lot of times I know there's always when you're plugging into those ports on the computer, so as you're in essence hacking the ports to get data off. I know those ports are designed to feed data though, so probably not as big a deal. But back in the day, that was a big deal. That's a good one. I think that's just interesting to see where we're seeing this convergence of hardware and APIs, and I think then obviously we can tie that back up into the buzzword cloud and go from there. Very cool. Can't wait to look into that one in more detail. Well, I'll jump back into microservices / containers. So I think last time I talked about, I probably glommed them together. I probably said, hey, I'm going to talk about containers or I'm going to talk about microservices, and I think in a lot of cases, I often think of them as the same thing. But when I was really prepping for today and thinking about where things are going, obviously they're not the same thing. They don't go necessarily hand in hand, or they're not always together. So as a company, we're always kind of trying to keep ahead in R&D to figure out as these buzzwords start to emerge in industry. Get ready for them to or understand them, so when they get to our clients, we know what the hell we're talking about, and we can advise them appropriately. Like, where's the hype? Where's the not hype? Where's something real? Where's something we got to go do? Luckily, doing work for the government, I think, and especially the Department of Defense, sometimes we have a little bit more time to waste, or we have a little bit more time to spend learning, right? Because the hype doesn't catch us as fast, but it does catch us at some point. The big data buzzwords or any of the big hype that comes out. And I know we have 6 minutes left, but I'm going to probably go a few minutes longer. So, talking off camera here. So last time, like I said, I talked about microservices and containers, and this is a big hype word right now. I mean, it's constantly being talked about, and I've even forced myself to embrace containerization maybe while doing some R&D or some proof of concepts for clients to see how this all fits together and really start to think about how they all kind of go together. So getting ahead of it, obviously, one of the things we're constantly doing is working with our clients, talking about things like APIs, talking about services, talking about breaking up systems into more modular components so we can more easily maintain them and think about those pieces as services. I think most of the time when we're talking about that nowadays, we're really talking about, because we're kind of behind in the government space and especially in the DoD space, we're usually just talking about APIs and stuff in the concept of, or services in the concept of separating data and views a lot of times, and separating data to think about data sharing maybe as well. So separating the data from the views and then allowing that data to also be easily shared, because we're trying to get the federation of the department, for instance, or the federation of the federal government to share data amongst itself or with the public. One of the things I don't think we're doing very much yet is thinking about services, and this really kind of gets to the kind of design pattern of microservices, breaking up services into even smaller chunks, typically talking to each other maybe over something like HTTP or some other lightweight protocol, and we're not really, we're not talking about that as much in the government just yet, I don't think. I mean, we're hinting around the edges, but we're really still just typically talking about the data side. And I think part of where our challenges there are is that we're not thinking about it in the concept. People talk about modularizing things, they talk about breaking things up, but then they don't think about what that means as a provider of that service to others. And I think that's one of the things we're going to have to do as this concept of microservices continues to emerge, as we think about things getting smaller. I think that's where there's one opportunity, but I think it also, comes with there's an overhead around it. And actually what prompted me to even want to discuss this on the podcast, or on the live stream, was an article by Martin Fowler about the kind of the microservice premium. I don't know if we're, I definitely know in the government we're behind thinking about it, but I think even in some of our, even when we start to talk about breaking things up, we need to become very aware of what that means from the standpoint of what's the overhead that's going to bring to the project. And I will post this article on there. I would welcome everybody to look at it. It really comes down to weighing the pros and cons of those overhead of those services and how micro you may or may not take them. I don't think we've gotten to those too much lately, those kinds of discussions too much with our clients necessarily, because we're usually just talking about the data separation and those being smaller chunks. But I think as we continue to move forward, we're going to have to start to bridge that gap too when we start talking about being providers of other services that are more than just maybe data services. And I think that buzzword, or that push, is also become because of the other buzzword kind of out there right now around containers. We have things like Docker emerging, which is a containerization tool, I guess I would say, a software that allows you to easily deploy smaller than our typical virtual machines, everything on a single server, or on a single service. And that's why I get always confused, because I start combining services and containers and easily deploying them to multiple kinds of environments. I don't think we're, that whole concept, as people keep pushing towards us looking at this concept of containers, and we're hearing it from the federal side and everything, it's going to force us to think about these services as smaller chunks. And then we've got to start to contend with this concept of how small we should make these services be. And I think for our clients, we've got to keep going back, and I'm not explaining this as well as I wanted to today, but it's like we got to start to really think about, as we're breaking things down, are we willing to be that provider? Do we understand what it's going to mean to be a provider? Is it what's it going to mean for our N number of consumers if we really are going to act like a service? And I think this is just something we're going to have to continue to educate, keep people thinking about, so that we can determine what's the right, how far we break these services down without just adding additional complexity. The other thing though, and I think there's some opportunities, I think there's risks, but I think there's some opportunities too. A lot of people are talking about microservices, and I'm going on a big rant right now, but a lot of people, and all over the place, but a lot of people are talking about microservices as being this additional complexity, though in a simplistic system may just, like I said, add so much overhead that it makes it more brittle. You add N number of new failure points and things like that. And I do think that's true in some simple systems. However, I also think we have some opportunities by breaking these down into smaller pieces and going over to the container side, Docker and stuff like that. We have this interesting ability to isolate from a security perspective, I believe, certain components in ways that may give us some, give our IA folks some, initially some headaches, but I think in the long run give them some opportunity to really protect things in a even a more efficient way, because those things will be so micro, the container will be so kind of isolated from the rest of the system, obviously communicating through certain ways, but that we can ensure the security of that container. And the thing that really got me thinking about that, I know we haven't had a chance to talk about it, but a couple months ago when the integrated acquisition environment, they were talking about their big approach to the reboot of things like SAM and FPDS and some of the major federal government systems. They talked about Docker, for instance. And they talked about these concept of IA approved containers, ATO'd containers, containers that have authority to operate already, that would basically encapsulate any software you write or any service you write with a government-approved container. I think that would be awesome. I think the ability to know that the government can hand us as system integrators these containers that we can just run with, develop against, know that things are going to work, and more importantly, it puts all those controls in place that needs to be to make them happy. And then we know that those services are very tightly bound in there. And I think I think there's a big opportunity there if we can kind of get the IA folks to really start to think about that and embrace it, because I think there's still some challenges there as well. We have a real opportunity to actually make more secure systems in those cases. I'm sure there's a good debate on the other side of that too, and I've got some people nodding in the audience here, and I'm sure the IA folks too. But I think this is a space that's going through a hype cycle on the commercial side. I think right now, people are always saying don't necessarily believe the hype in some areas. I think we have a little bit of time to get prepared for some of our government clients because we're not there yet, but we are seeing it on the federal side. And I think this is something we want to continue to work with them and guide them to use these technologies and these design patterns appropriately. I know we even did some stuff on the Docker stuff, and we ran into, it makes you think.
Yeah,
It's a whole different way of thinking, I think.
Definitely. Yeah.
Any thoughts on that? Now that I just went on a complete 10-minute soapbox, maybe even 20 minutes, I don't even know.
I think you got it.
Maybe from the audience on that one?
No.
Why? Because we're over?
I don't know. Sounds good.
But you were nodding, Trey. Trey's off
Wrapping it
camera
up.
right now. Now Jeremy's saying we gotta wrap it up. I'm not sure that's the exact pitch I wanted to give in discussion on microservices and containers. Maybe want to touch it again on another one, maybe even isolate it a little bit. But until next time, I guess we'll wrap it up. Anything you want to go over before you end it?
No.
Since
that's
now
good.
we went long. All right.
Hey, you want to plug the National Day of Civic Hacking on Saturday?
Is that this weekend?
Yeah, it's Saturday.
So National, what is it?
National Day of Civic Hacking.
National Day of Civic Hacking. Oh yeah, so they're going to be doing that at Chief, right?
Yep.
So we'll put that in the show links. I think we mentioned that a couple weeks ago as well. That's this weekend. That's a national event too, right? So I know
Small Business Association is that one's with Small Business Association.
Yeah.
So
At Chief.
At Chief, yeah.
So Chief's doing it here local. I know they're all over the place though, so I actually remember seeing one of our friends out in California that they're going to be doing some of that as well at some locations. So that's one coming up. Any other big events coming up from the crowd? That one it?
Maybe something on Saturday? No.
Okay, well we'll wrap up this.
LBB.
So
LBB Saturday
we'll
night.
put that in the show notes about
That's a plug.
Shameless.
Chris, you're on next week, by the way. So we'll wrap up 5:40:15 for this morning. I think we're 5:40:30 at this moment or so. Maybe. No, we're not that bad. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us at 540co on Twitter. J O'Brien III. What's your Twitter handle?
LunstJB.
All right, we'll put it in the show notes.
Somebody needs an easier Twitter handle.
All right, thanks everyone for watching.